So the breaking news, lawyers for former President Donald Trump have been seen going into the Department of Justice. You might remember that Trump's attorneys requested a meeting with Attorney General Merrick Garland last month in connection with the special counsel's investigation of classified documents at Mar-a-Lago. CNN's Evan Perez joins us now with the very latest on what is going on. Evan, is this meeting still taking place?
It is still taking place as far as we can tell, John. We have not seen the Trump attorneys leave the building. There's only one way in and out for visitors, so we're sitting there waiting to see what they might say when they exit. But look, this is a meeting that the Trump lawyers requested just just a couple weeks ago now. They were asking to meet with the Attorney General, Merrick Garland. No sign that Merrick Garland is actually meeting with them at this moment. Neither any sign that they're meeting with the Deputy Attorney General, Lisa Monaco. The way these things work, certainly for the Justice Department, because they're trying to keep this investigation in the hands of Jack Smith, the special counsel, is, they might try to accommodate a meeting with somebody who's a career official here at the Justice Department who can at least hear these complaints that they have. What the Trump attorneys wrote in their letter is that they believe that there's been prosecutorial misconduct that has gone on in this investigation. They didn't specify what exactly that prosecutorial misconduct, just that the former president is being treated like unlike anyone in the history of the presidency. And so that's partly what their beef is, and that's what they want to try to bring across in this meeting today. Now, again, we don't know the specifics of that alleged misconduct that they're making, that they're claiming, but we do know that one of the things they're very unhappy about is the fact that Jack Smith and the prosecutors have obtained a trove of information, including attorney-client privilege material that normally is shielded from investigators, but they got that because a judge determined that there was an exception under the crime fraud exception that allows prosecutors to obtain that kind of evidence. So again, we don't know exactly how long this meeting is going to go, who exactly they're meeting with, but we know that what they want is they want to lay some claims about the way this investigation has been ongoing. John?
And just having one more question on the timing here, because I know you and others are reporting that the grand jury that has been hearing testimony about this is back meeting again now for the first time in some time. So what does that tell you?
Right, exactly. I think the context, the crucial timing, I think, is very important here. All signs indicate that this is an investigation in its closing stages, and that could mean a number of things. It could mean that the grand jury, which hasn't been seen at the courthouse since early May, is coming back to get some wrap-up witnesses, to get some additional testimony. It could be that you bring back a grand jury that hasn't met in weeks to bring an indictment. So there's a number of possibilities that this grand jury could be coming back for. We do not know. Obviously, Jack Smith is holding his cards very close to the vest, but I think that's one of the reasons why this meeting is so important, certainly from the Trump perspective, because if they want to try to get to somebody inside this building to say that there should be a pause, that something should be stopped, now is the time to do that, John.
All right, Evan Perez, we're going to let you get back to reporting. If you learn anything new about this meeting, get back to us right away. In the meantime, we're going to speak to CNN legal analyst Laura Coates. Counselor, great to see you. First, a general question. In a meeting like this, which is not unheard of, when you have someone who is being investigated, their attorneys asked to meet with prosecutors, what's the nature of the conversation behind closed doors?
Well, first of all, the power dynamic you have to keep in mind here, John, it's the prosecutors who have all of the power here. They know what testimony has come in, what has not. They know if there are any gaps in their evidentiary burden looking towards perhaps a prosecution. They know what witnesses there have been. They know who is cooperating. They know who is not. And they've largely probably been able to outline what are the potential statutes that could be implicated by the conduct that they are now investigating. And so when they hold the bulk of those cards, this meeting is not just a magnanimous gesture. I don't want to make that claim, but what it is somebody who has the intention as the prosecutor to be closed-mouthed, to not be as forthcoming as they could be, say if they were in an open courtroom or trial, because the other side has every incentive to then go out and talk and try to spin. And that has already been the track record here. The idea of misconduct is a huge allegation, a huge claim to level against any prosecutor, particularly the Department of Justice, obviously, knowing that they have gone to great lengths through Jack Smith to have the impropriety that was hinted at by Trump and his team to be distanced from the Attorney General Merrick Garland. So the number one thing to keep in mind here is the power dynamic. And as Evan rightly pointed out, there's a little bit of kudos that ought to be given to the entire process here, because grand juries are supposed to be secret. We're supposed to be a little bit in the dark here, John. We're supposed to be wondering, because that presents more fairness for the defendant or a potential target. If we know everything, then the court of public opinion can undermine the ability to get a fair trial, a fair jury impaneled, if that were ever to get there.
Based on everything that we do know, and as you correctly note, that's limited, what we know, where do you see things right now?
Well, this is, first of all, when you're talking about the attorneys wanting to come in, when we have the reporting from last week, our excellent reporting from our own colleagues about the nature of documents that may have been viewed, whether they were disclosed or wanting to be disclosed to anyone, the idea of his own statements before our town hall with Caitlin Collins on his intention to retain documents and believing he had every right to do so, and then the reports of tapes potentially that show that he did not believe that he had the ability to show them whenever he wanted to. We're waiting on all the culmination of that reporting. Based on that, the length of time, and of course the January 6th prosecution, which of course is part of what Jack Smith is looking at, we are really nearing towards the end of an investigation cycle. Keep in mind as well as this, we are, over 500 days away from the presidential election. But internally, the Department of Justice has its eyes on the novelty of this entire investigation against a former president and one who wants to have the RNC nomination again, a purported frontrunner in that very race. And so they already know there are time constraints on when they can launch investigations, launch prosecutions, because they do not want to be seen as interfering with an election. And so the timeline's already a little bit shrunk for that very reason. But I suspect, given the fact that they have all this information, and if intent was all they were waiting for, the reporting has come in and seems to draw a very clear line that they know what that is.
Laura Coates, such important context. Thank you for laying all that out so clearly for us. I appreciate it. Sarah?
All right, thank you, John. Kristen Holmes is going to be joining us now in Washington, D.C. She's been following this case and obviously talking with those surrounding Donald Trump. Have you heard anything from them since we have found out that their lawyers are now meeting with the DOJ?
Well, sir, we haven't had an official comment from the Trump campaign. However, I did speak to two advisors who gave me some background information on what exactly this is going to look like, what exactly they are trying to ask for. You heard Evan mention this idea that they are characterizing this as prosecutorial misconduct. I am told by one advisor that they plan to provide specific examples of overreach. Now, when I asked what those specific examples were, there was no detail given there, but something to keep in mind that they believe that they have some kind of evidence here. The other thing that I'm told by another advisor that they're planning to argue is that the best thing to do is to close this case before the election, and essentially alleging that if not, this could lead to election interference. That is something that we have heard from former President Trump, and it gives you somewhat of a preview into what he might say if he loses the primary. As I've heard from these advisors, they believe that this Republican primary field will be completely set by the end of the week, or at least almost set, and that the election has begun. And that's something that they plan to argue, again, that this could interfere with that election. It gives you a little bit of insight into where their brains are right now.
Yeah, well, as this goes further and gets closer and closer to the primaries, they're going to make that argument. But have they given you any indication about what exactly they are talking to the DOJ about? You said just prosecutorial misconduct, overreach, but any specifics, not even one?
Not even one specific. And I have asked routinely what exactly they believe was prosecutorial misconduct, as well as details into what they are saying was overreach, what kind of examples that they have. Again, I have not heard back on anything specific as to what they believe that this overreach was.
Well, I'm sure we're going to hear from someone in this case after this meeting. We appreciate your time, Kristen Holmes, and your reporting.